You're listening to the Full Court Press with your host, Drew Duncan. Don't you dare touch that dial. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Full Court Press. I am your host, Drew Duncan. We are live on 99.5 ESPN Radio, Emporia's home for sports. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's all at Drew Duncan 83. Additionally, you can find 99.5 on social media. That's at 995 ESPN, or pardon me, at 99.5 ESPN. Guys, I am more than excited to introduce our next guest on the program. He recently became the ESU Hornets basketball coach. He comes in with an outstanding 162 wins to only 50 loss record. He just came for Graceland, where he took a team that had never made a national tournament to a championship team in a mere 2-year turnaround. His name is Craig Doty, and he's right here on the Full Court Press. Craig, I want to tell you, it is a real pleasure to have you on, sir.
Drew, I'm excited to sit down and talk with you today, and you know, the excitement is just rolling here in Emporia.
I couldn't agree more, Coach. And given that, and if I may here, look, there's been a lot of negative publicity that's been going on right now with college basketball regarding the one-and-done scenario, all the fraud scandals that have been happening. But yet you come in with a guy whose first and foremost plight is to, or concern, I should say, is to make sure that your players graduate. Do you see yourself as a breath of fresh air, or are there more coaches that think the way that you do? It's just not talked about a lot.
Well, I think especially in small college basketball, and even big college basketball, you know, a majority of the coaches are in it for the right reasons and do the right things. And, you know, anytime you're looking at large college basketball where it's financially driven, there's going to be more volatility in terms of decisions that are made and, you know, potential violations. And then shoe companies jumped in and they're starting to run things and back channel things. And, you know, those type of operations just don't take place in small college basketball. I don't think I'm a breath of fresh air. That's an anomaly, if you will. I think I'm one of many coaches that view the student athlete experience as being a staple to establishing these kids for the rest of their lives as future professionals, husbands, fathers, community members, and we look forward to growing this program around the right kids and doing things the right way to ultimately set these kids up to do what they love while making a lot of money so they can provide for their families.
Speaking of which, in recruiting, you were just on a recruiting call right before you got on the air with me. And look, recruiting is tough, and it's needless to say, but I think that you're well aware that you are in a very competitive state for basketball recruiting. You've got KU, KSU, WSU, all here, not to mention Trinity basketball. You've got Newman, several others that are, you know, very basketball-driven programs. How do you feel, and how do you plan to attack this particular area, and how will ESU be able to stack up?
Yeah, so, you know, I'm coming from Graceland University, which is only 3 hours and 10 minutes away from Emporia, and you know, this isn't an area that I'm not familiar with. We've already recruited Kansas City incredibly hard. I'm very familiar with most all the coaches in the Jayhawk Junior College Conference as well. So, you know, for us, it's just continuing to nurture the established relationships that we have throughout the Midwest, throughout the Central Time Zone, and continuing to find high-level players that can play it. You know, there's no secret to our formula. If a kid's being recruited by 7, 8, 9 different schools, and he's been on, you know, he's just constantly going on official visits everywhere. Those usually aren't the kids we gravitate towards. We like to take more of the Butler approach, you know, especially when Brad Stevens was there, where we find kids that may not necessarily be the highest sought after ones, but they're the ones who we feel fit our program the best. They have to be talented. They have to represent what we're all about. But you know, when you see our teams as we build this roster take the floor, we're going to be just as talented, if not more talented, than our opponents night in and night out. And you know, that's what the goal is. We anticipate we'll be able to change this around relatively quick. We don't want to put the cart before the horse. It does take time, especially when you're in a big time league. But also, I've never had a losing season, you know, Drew. So this is. You know, it's something that I certainly wouldn't think well if it did happen, but at the same time, you have to understand where you're at, We're going to do everything in our power to get this thing turned around tomorrow, but understand that it could take a year or two. So just stay tuned. You'll be following us on a day-to-day basis, and we'll be communicating about it. But what an exciting time for this program, for this department, and for me and my family.
We're talking to Craig Doty right here on 99.5 ESPN Radio, the Full Court Press. I am your host, Drew Duncan. He's the new Emporia State men's basketball coach. Coach, along those lines, my next question was, look, we live in a produce now world. It's crazy to me to think that a Jim Boeheim was given 9 seasons before he finally produced a winning program. You're already experienced in the quick turnaround market. Could you elaborate a little bit more as to what ESU fans should expect? Should we play the patience game, Coach, or should we expect immediate results? As you said, we want to turn it around, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we can.
Well, you talk to me here in a couple months when we got this recruiting class done, and I can be able to give you a better answer, Drew. But I expect of myself and of my staff to turn this around as quick as possible. But again, I think we all have to be realistic. I'm not going to ask anybody to be patient with us. I'm just going to ask that they watch the improvement in our programs from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, and they're going to see how things continually get better. If we have the same weaknesses at the beginning as we do in the middle, as we do at the end, and then we're not doing a very good job with our group. We're bringing back 2 big-time players in Brandon Hall and Hassan Thomas, and we look forward to building around those guys. There's some other nice pieces here too, and we're just trying to find the right guys to complement them so we can mask our weaknesses and deficiencies and actually turn them into strengths, and then we can continue to take the current strengths of our roster and make sure we can exploit those to the maximum ability.
Coach, one of the favorite quotes of all time for me is from Bob Stoops. And he said, the thing about winning is people think it's easy, and it's not. If you were to talk to an outsider looking in that expects immediate results and says, why can't we get this thing done now? What would you say to that person?
I said, let's do it. I said, let's get it done. I'm not asking for patience from anybody, but we're certainly going to be realistic in the approach. And once we get into league play, we're going to have to really, really come together. Most of these rosters of the league the teams throughout the MIAA have been built over many, many years. So we're already behind the 8 ball, but that's okay. Again, we're not looking for patience. We're not looking for excuses. We're looking for improvement every single day. And when that happens, if we take care one day at a time, everything's going to move forward. And I think people are going to be excited about the future of this program.
Coach, Russell Westbrook on a national level is getting a lot of attention right now, obviously, from what I'm sure you saw, the heat that he had with the fan. We saw this years ago at the collegiate level with Marcus Smart when he was at Oklahoma State. What is your position on relationships between your players and fans? And when you see things like this take place, what do you believe the appropriate course of action is?
Well, I think everything today is about relationships. Nobody has much time for the dictatorial, authoritarian style of the 80s and early 90s. Things have changed quite a bit, and in relationships with players, relationships with boosters and fans, that's what it's all about. And at the end of the day, you want to be around people that represent the same values that you have, that parallel the same level of excitement. And if we have the right kids in the program, which we will. Not only will the fans be excited about it, the boosters as well as the community, but it'll just be a joy to work with on a day-to-day basis. But no, everything starts and ends with relationships.
Speaking of relationships, one of the things, Coach, that a coach has to be is more than just a coach. Look, coaches are a best friend sometimes. They're a dad sometimes. Sometimes they're the only father figure in a kid's life. Sometimes you've got to be that uncle or maybe big brother that they never had. It is a difficult world that you live in. What kind of approach do you take to make yourself as relatable to your players as you can, especially on maybe sometimes more of a mass level? Because, we're not in football. You don't have 75 kids per se, but you're going to have 15 to 20 kids, and it's still not easy. What's the approach that you take?
Well, that's a great question, Drew. I think, number one, I'm 32 years old. It wasn't that long ago that I was in their position. And I'm scared if I'm still doing this and I'm in my mid-50s and, I don't understand, what the latest technology and social media platforms are. Right now I know I know the hip hop, the same hip hop music they're listening to as it comes out, and I know what they're doing on Snapchat and Instagram, and just being able to have those conversations, relate with them, and teach our guys how to build a brand for themselves. Again, this is so much more than just basketball. You know, all of our student athletes have the ability to set themselves up for internships, set themselves up for entry-level jobs, and even beyond by their actions while they're at Emporia State University. So, you know, it's all about connecting with them and talking about what's most important in their life and making sure they understand how important competing at a national level and winning games is, but knowing that this is just a vehicle for a much bigger picture, and that is to be successful in the game of life. That does not include an orange ball that bounces off the ground. It includes being able to make an impact in your community. It means being able to make an impact in your profession. It means when you have a wife and a family that you're going to be able to provide for them and be there for them. And those are big picture items. And when you really start talking to kids and you can connect with them, they will see that as well. And then that also trickles down, right down to why we're all hanging out in the first place and why they're on scholarships and why they're playing. It's because of basketball. And you make that complete connection with these guys. And as a result, it allows you to build positive culture and chemistry, which is conducive to on-floor success.
We're talking to Craig Doty right here on the Full Court Press, 99.5 ESPN Radio. I'm your host, Drew Duncan. He's the new men's basketball coach at ESU right here in Emporia. Coach, as I do with all of my guests, I allow you to take a moment to just have the floor and say whatever it is that is on your mind. It's completely unfiltered at this point. There's no right or wrong here. Say whatever it is that you would like to, Coach.
Well, I think the biggest thing I want to say and talk about is just really saying thanks at this point. I just arrived here in Emporia, and my family couldn't be more excited. And I just want to thank Kent and Don and Christy and everybody at Emporia State for not only hiring me, from the administrative level all the way down to the other coaches for welcoming me when I arrived, and my family. And it's just an exciting time for us. So I look forward to getting out in the community and getting to know so many people. I've already met Mr. Steve Sauter and some others who are just big-time players in this community and at our university, and I look forward to getting to know each and every one of the viewers who are listening and on a personal level. And again, I'm all about relationships. I don't just say it. I walk that as well, and it's exciting times right now, and I can't wait for the next day. It's just really an exciting time.
Thank you very much, Coach. I appreciate you being on the program with us today. All right, everybody, you heard it right there. Coach Craig Doty, the new ESU head coach. Emporia State Hornets basketball definitely has something to look forward to. Great takes all the way around from the new head coach. This is the Full Court Press. I am your host, Drew Duncan. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan 83. We'll be back right after this. Don't you dare touch that dial.